All right, we're live. Actually, no, we're not live. It's all recorded. Actually, we could have done this live if we had 4G signal all the way down the Hume. Maybe in 20 years.
Speaking of the Hume, isn't it great to be back?
It is. It
It's
is.
good just to be on the Hume.
Really good. Just had a $22 lunch. Consisted of a burrito pocket.
I won't show you. We won't show you where we went.
Let's get straight into it. Best cycling state. So I'm going from the first questions that were asked. We go back in chronological order. Best cycling state in Australia.
Okay, so can I go first?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to be annoying and break this into sort of three parts so best cycling state's pretty broad, but I think for racing right now, like if you want to go and race your bike, Queensland is the place to be. Best races, most reliable races, hardest parcours, probably the hardest field, sorry, everywhere else. But it is. It's just genuinely the most consistent, hardest racing up there. If you're just a leisure cyclist looking to ride the best terrain, then Victoria, for me, definitely the variety.
Really?
Yeah. With mountains, gravel, like just genuine, like variety of what's on offer. But, and it comes with a massive but, the weather is shite. And so New South Wales becomes like, yeah, we don't have the best racing, no, we don't have the best like terrain or the best roads, but you can pretty much ride 12 months of the year and have kind of good elements of both. So,
What about Adelaide though?
yeah, but like it's not a city. Anyway,
South Australia.
South Australia,
Cycling state. I'm going with Queensland. Great weather, if you like the hot that I do. Great racing, good climbing. Well, I reckon Queensland.
So Adelaide, I mean, South Australia definitely on the list, and we'll find out next couple of weeks because we're going to spend some time there, which is cool. But I don't want to be. It'd be hard to live in Adelaide. That's all. It's just little.
Yeah, it's just little.
That's all.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, cool. All right. How do you get? There's so many training questions in this. How do you get comfortable riding 30 kilometers per hour and above? Because I can only maintain 22 to 25 kilometers per hour. Watching from the Philippines. Shout out to everyone from the Philippines, actually. Sweet. So how do you get comfortable riding 30k an hour and above? Well, first thing would just be fitness. You'll just riding more and getting fitter. You'll be comfortable riding faster. Probably if you're in the Philippines, maybe equipment as well. Like, can you get access to a faster road bike? I think when we were in the Philippines, we saw a lot of people ride mountain bikes over there. So yeah, maybe you're on a mountain bike, in which case you might have to just lower your standards. Like if you're not on a road bike with narrow 25 millimeter wide tires, it's probably not realistic to just be riding around at 30k an hour. So equipment's probably the main one, and riding more, I guess. Getting fitter.
Riding more, stopping less. That's kind of, I think it's something that people, when they start out a bit, just stop a bit too much. Like, you don't have to bury yourself on every bike ride and ride as fast as you can, but God, if you can reduce the stops, it can really help with your fitness.
I'm a fairly big dude, 95 kilograms, coming from a weightlifting background and been cycling for about 1.5 years, struggling to bring the scale down to improve climbing and overall fitness without very restrictive dieting, which limits my training. Any tips on finding a way to lose weight without handicapping my training? Coming from a perspective of being on the heavier end of the spectrum. Okay. How do I lose weight?
I'd love to know the time scale on this. Like, both Jesse and I came from different sports that were not, like, skinny cyclist sports. And it just took a long time. I mean, it's not something that you want to crash into. You know, you spend a lot of years building up that muscle. It's not just going to disappear overnight.
Yeah, losing muscle takes quite a long time. Someone's replied, maybe look into intermittent fasting. Don't recommend that, especially this person's trying to ride, is looking for performance on the bike and weight loss, not just necessarily losing weight. So I wouldn't recommend intermittent fasting. I mean, so if in terms of losing weight while performing on the bike, if you work backwards, there's a few things you're gonna need. You need your protein requirements every day, which is between 1.2 up to sort of 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. So for an endurance athlete, so go in the middle of that. Get 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Then you need carbohydrates to fuel your training. So get your carbs in, your amount of carbs per hour during your rides. So maybe start with 50 grams an hour for your training sessions and go up from there. So you've got to have that. And you need carbs before and after training as well. So you're getting in protein, getting in carbs, and then like other basics like serves of fruit and vegetables per day. And then besides that, I mean, eat less calories than you're burning off, and be in a slight calorie deficit. You can measure that if you want, or you can just do it off feel. I mean, there's not any tips on finding a way to lose weight without handicapping my training. Well, yeah, if you don't want to handicap your training, don't cut carbohydrates before, during, and after your training. Other than that, you just need to eat less calories than you're burning.
I don't know, the way I'd look at it as well, like if you're a fit bodybuilder type guy, like use that almost to your advantage. If you can keep some of that lean muscle mass as you get more and more into cycling, that's going to see big gains for you the fitter you get, the more time you spend. I mean, I'm super jealous of that, like to have all that kind of lean muscle mass to rely on. So don't feel like you need to panic here. A lot of that's, it's an advantage.
Yeah. A lot of skinnier cyclists would love a little bit more muscle. So yeah, I wouldn't think of it all as being too negative.
Just do crits and just destroy people like me and like feel good about yourself. Like, you don't have to become a climber.
All right. I understand that the body reacts to training stimulus and that different training stimuluses produce different adaptations to the body. Yep. What I struggle to understand is if you can mix training stimulus in a session and get multiple adaptations, or is it best to just provide one type of stimulus per session and have the body produce one type of adaptation?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Also, how long does the body take to produce the adaptations in response to the stimulus? Keep up the excellent work. Thanks, JD. So firstly, I'll go work from the back. How long does it take to produce the adaptations in response to the stimulus? Depends on what the adaptations are. The more aerobic ones take longer to build. That could be literally years. There are athletes that they're 10 years in and they're still getting adaptations in terms of mitochondria and stuff. So it could be that. And then some of the other things can happen in a week. Like you can literally get fitter in a week from some of the higher intensity stuff. So the answer to that, how long does it take, depends what adaptations you're talking about. But in terms of can you mix training stimuluses? Yes. So what you're probably thinking about is like zones, kind of like, oh, well, I'm training my VO2 max zone so I can get this sort of training stimulus. And even though that's how you might think of training, your body doesn't. If you went and really digged into it, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different adaptations that are going on when you train, and they all happen simultaneously when you're training. So even though we kind of narrow things down into zones, that's not how the body adapts. The body adapts as a whole to your training as a whole. So yes, like, even though I might go out and do a sweet spot training session, there are a whole heap of different adaptations that is giving. And yes, I might then go and do like a sweet spot. Like the other week I did a sweet spot session and then I did some 30-second efforts after. Both of those have a different aim, but yeah, you're doing them in the same session to get adaptations. I think that's what racing is. Racing is a whole spectrum of different things. So I wouldn't get too caught up from the way that question was written, I think I wouldn't get too caught up in exactly what adaptation you're going for. Stick to more general principles. It's a little bit of a rabbit hole going down into there. So yeah. Anything on that, Chris? I'm getting cold here.
Just to turn the. Hang on, no, don't do that one. We'll do this. We'll do this.
Yeah, like just actually, so part of that question was, is it best to just provide one type of stimulus per session and have the body produce one type of adaptation? That's not what the body's doing when you're exercising. When you're doing exercise, even though you might be training in one zone, the body's doing a whole heap of different stuff. And even across different zones, you'll be getting the same adaptation. So if you go out and do a zone 2 ride, you can then go and do a threshold session, and a lot of the adaptations, even though they're slightly different, there is heaps of crossover. So I think, the way that's being thought about there is not exactly how it happens in the body.
I think one of the issues that I hear a little bit from coaches though is if you are doing if you're trying to hit different energy zones and that kind of stuff on a same training session, that potentially you're not giving your best in that probably in the high zone stuff. So if you went and did VO2 work, you're not really wanting to match that with some threshold stuff because you're probably not getting the gains out of the VO2 work.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So if you're another way to think about it would be if you're just trying to improve your peak output in one specific area, then it might make sense to go and just do your VO2 max stuff on its own. But that doesn't mean doing a session with different efforts as more of a race replication type thing. That still has merits as well. So it just depends what the goal is. So Charles says, what are your thoughts on low cadence tempo/threshold work? I think you've mentioned you do it, but do you prescribe it for your athletes? What's the goal of it? Any evidence or theories on adaptation from it? I do it. I do quite a lot of it actually at certain times of the year. I really like lower cadence work. Chris, you do it much?
Not since jumping into the gym.
Okay.
To be honest, that's sort of where Sorry, we're talking about high cadence or low cadence?
Low cadence.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
You do a bit of it.
I do a bit. No, you're right. I do a bit of it. Yeah.
So do you prescribe it for your athletes? Yes. I give my riders low cadence work. Why? What's the goal of it? A few different things. From a non-scientific point of view, I find, and a lot of people find, when you go out and do low cadence work, you feel better on the bike. So yes, you could argue that, let's say you're doing 3 10-minute efforts at threshold, and you do them at your regular cadence or you do them at your lower cadence, you could argue that the adaptations are similar. But I find doing them sometimes at certain parts of the year at a lower cadence makes the efforts, especially when you're not really trying to move the needle a lot, it can just make you feel better on the bike, feel better during your efforts. And I think then, maybe a month later when you go out and do your threshold work at your preferred regular cadence, you actually find it feels a little bit easier and gives you more potential for a fitness gain later on. I just think it's really unscientific, but the feeling you get after doing weeks of lower cadence work, 1 or 2 times a week, I can feel the difference, and that's why I personally do it and give it to my riders. In terms of like any evidence for that, theories, no, it definitely accelerates fatigue. So for example, if I'm trying to get someone, I've got some people at the moment training for 3 peaks, Peaks Challenge, and they don't necessarily have 6 hours every weekend to go out and ride. So I might give them a 3 or 4 hour ride, starting off with a lot of lower cadence work. It just accelerates the fatigue in your muscles and kind of gives you, 3 hours into a ride with a bunch of lower cadence efforts, you can feel like you're 4 or 5 hours into a normal ride. So I do find in terms of preparing for a race, it can make you feel more fatigued than usual.
I kind of really like I know this sounds weird, but I like the pain that it gives you, if that makes sense. It's almost like it's not like your lungs are burning and your heart, that you might be doing if you're riding at your normal cadence at threshold. It's a very different, deep leg pain. Do you know what I mean? I know it might sound strange.
I get it too. Yeah.
But like and it's almost a nice change from what a normal interval might be.
Yeah, like where I definitely agree, and like where I use it, that actually fits in with where I use it in my own training. I don't use it that much in like peak. See, like, you know, when I'm really trying to be race fit, I'll kind of use it in the month or two before that to kind of build myself up, where I don't really want to be going out and doing super hard threshold efforts really on the limit, but I might be doing them more at, you know, sweet spot, but then dropping the cadence to build up a bit. And yeah, it's not that lung burning pain, it's more of an overall sort of increase in effort level. I know, I quite like it. Yeah.
You can cut this out, but I actually find also that it's an easy effort to do wrong, in the sense that it's very much about trying to lock your whole body and core in position and ride it. I've for years done it, I think, the wrong way, and sort of wobbled around and noodled the gear from like push to push, if that makes sense. Whereas if you really lock yourself into the bars, you seem to get a more.
You're training the muscles that stabilise yourself on the bike. It's a form of overload for the trunk and hips in terms of stabilisation. That's true. And pros do it. You see Rego. Go on Rigoberto Urán's Instagram. He's out there all the time doing SEs and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely used. All right, Victor, what's your opinion on narrow handlebars, 38 millimeters and below, and moving your shifters inward to improve aerodynamics?
Okay. Well, can I take, because I've gone to 36s 3 years ago, I went down to 36s, and look, I certainly found it challenging, really challenging on longer days, no two ways about it. Time and a place, different type of rider, but I don't know. I think there are gains to be made elsewhere. That's not necessarily where you should be prioritising.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm all for it. Actually, try it out. It's probably going to be more aero, definitely. Narrow bars, hoods in. You're going to be more aero. So if you try it out, and if you can be comfortable doing it, then go for it. But
when you
know,
say
it's a pretty
try it out,
expensive
though,
thing
like,
to try.
Are we saying 36s or 38s or?
Well, you maybe go 2 centimeters narrower than what you run at the moment.
Yeah.
Give it a go, and then you could step it down. I think it's worth a try. I'm all for it, actually. Moving your shifters inward. Yeah, I'm all for that as well. I mean, it looks kind of lame, but it's probably works. Maybe battery-wise, or on one bit. Hi Jesse, I'm in week 2 of my base training, and my coach is already putting 4 tempo sessions in, 1 hour of tempo, rest in zone 2 in a single week. So 4 tempo sessions per week. I think it's not a good way to build a solid base. In my opinion, it's a good way to accumulate a ton of fatigue and come out of the base period with heavy legs and not wanting to ride at all. To be honest, I don't mind the tempo sessions. I'm only 2 weeks in, so my legs are not feeling it either, but I will be better off if I spend my time in zone 2, maybe an extra half an hour per session to compensate for the tempo. What do you think? So yeah, doing lots of tempo versus lots of zone 2, both can work. I would prefer, if you've got the time, it's pretty well established that the zone 2 approach is going to be better, less stressful, easier to recover from, and yeah, it's a better approach to go to. Better also, the ability for your body to become better at burning fat is going to be better by doing more volume at zone 2 instead of cutting your hours out and doing tempo. So I would go, if you've got time, I would say zone 2, but I mean, your coach is giving you more tempo. Maybe he feels like for the level of fitness you have, to see, like if you're quite an experienced rider and you're busy at work and you've only got 9 or 10 hours a week to train, maybe that's, if you're only doing zone 2, that's not going to be enough. So he or she has set your tempo instead, which is a valid approach. So I think it's probably a discussion to have with your coach. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with this. I don't think necessarily as well that this is going to burn you out. overtraining and getting burnt out from doing a lot of tempo is more going to be because you're not fueling it properly and you're under recovering, I would say. 4 tempo sessions a week, shouldn't be burning you out. It isn't necessarily going to burn you out. I think you can recover from that, in my opinion.
There's a bit more mental load to tempo sessions, though.
Yeah.
So that can be a little bit more taxing, because you are more likely in those sessions to be hitting the lap button and doing that kind of thing. Whereas on an endurance ride, you've probably got a podcast on and you're less
Switched off.
Yeah, you're more switched off. So I can kind of hear where you're coming from. You're like, I want to be in a base phase and just almost enjoy that phase. So yeah, it's certainly a discussion I would have. I mean, you're both clearly looking for the same results from whatever this part of your training is. So any good coach is going to be responding to feedback from yourself.
Yeah, if you've got more time to train, tell your coach. Maybe they will swap some of the tempo for more zone 2. I don't think there's many coaches that would be against that. So maybe have a chat with them. This one's a bit general. Talk a bit about food, drinks, etc. Daily schedule before and after ride. Do you listen to music, podcasts, audiobooks? Or do you just keep the head clear of distractions? I very rarely go for a ride without my headphones. If it's a low intensity ride, I'll do podcasts. I'll do podcasts for endurance or tempo. Anything above that, music. Unless I'm riding with people, then I will not use headphones.
So if you ride south or north, you're running...
Always headphones.
Really?
Always.
I would never do that.
No,
Never.
I always do it. It's like the part of the ride, that's part of riding that I like, is that phone goes on Do Not Disturb, I don't check it, chuck a podcast in and just relax.
I'm totally the opposite. Love just switching off, unplugging, and shouting abuse at drivers and getting involved. Though I was like, so for us, obviously living in the city, you're riding in traffic for a lot of it, and I'm not saying I'm doing it for like safety reasons. I just find like there's so much going around me with pedestrians, cars, trucks, like aeroplanes. There's always enough to keep me sort of, oh, look at that, oh, look at that. So I'm not sort of in the tunes. CP is different. Like I'll hit a podcast then, but I don't know.
Don't you get bored though? Or like
I find the time goes way faster if I'm not listening to something.
For me as well, because I need to listen. Like for me, I do find for my job, it is part of my job is to listen to podcasts and keep up to date with what's going on. And I don't have hours in the day to sit around listening to cycling podcasts.
That's different.
I do it on the bike.
Yeah.
So that's
professional development. I like it. Yeah.
Well, you got to. That's
good.
probably another chat. You got to keep up. You got to keep up to date with what's going on. Best Sydney route. Internal temp too high. All right. We're back. We're charging the camera. Okay. Next up, best Sydney routes. I'm gonna narrow this down. I'm gonna go one. Pick one. I'll go first. Mine is. Oh, can we have two? Oh, we'll go pick two. My one for a training session is up the Pacific Highway, Bobbin Head, then straight continue out all the way up to Mount White.
Oh, that's the classic me route.
Yeah, all the way up. You got plenty of climbs. Turn around at the top of Mount White, come back. You got 4 climbs. 100 and what is it? Like 130, 120?
Yeah.
That's my go-to training. In terms of just another ride, I do think out west has a lot to offer. So something like bike paths to Parramatta Park, then out Richmond Road, and then the Richmond Turfies bit with the horse stables, and then back to the M7 path back. That ride I really like. Something different as well, instead of like Stanwell Loop. It's like boring.
Yeah, no, nothing south. Sorry, south's a fail. So the route that Jesse mentioned, first off, I'll just add a little kind of change to that I can do one during the week by myself, which I absolutely love, which Jesse will put the link to it below, but it's a convoluted little one that uses some of the Gladesville Bridge, M2, Browns Waterhole, links you on up to Kissing Point Road out to Bobbin Head, and then once you're in Bobbin Head, do what he says. You can kind of go as far along the old Pacific Highway as you want, turn around, come back. It's pretty stress-free. I've done actually a couple of rides on that where I've barely stopped, like haven't clipped out. So it's been perfected over years to try and have it to be pretty flowy, and yeah, it's a good by yourself one. It's certainly, or with one other person. It's not a group ride by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm going to throw one back at you. I think 2022 we're going to see the comeback of the East Beaches Loop.
Oh,
East Beaches could be back, ladies and gentlemen.
I've already done it this year.
Yeah,
I probably already did it twice the entirety of last year, and I've already done it.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I think it's coming back. So I reckon there's some new little bits to find in it, but no, I like that one.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Still going. Oh, fucking temperature thing.
Man, turn this back up again. Hot.
Still
Turn it over this
Still
way.
recording. Oh, jeez, isn't this what you come to my channel for? I'm only 1.5 years of training. Should I start training intensity? I also just bought a power meter for that. Yeah, like if you've been riding for 1.5 years, I hope you just haven't been doing zone 2. Yeah, I mean, beginners can do intensity. Building a foundation of regular and consistent riding is also important, but yeah, beginners should be doing some intensity for sure.
I would say beginners normally do way too much intensity.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised by that.
Yeah. Also just bought a power meter. Sweet. Power meter is super important. At this stage, I pretty much don't, if someone comes to me for coaching and they don't, pretty much everyone has a power meter anyway, but if they don't have a power meter, I pretty much say, save up and buy one first, because it's so important. Kevin, for athletes who don't have an event, oh here we go, this might be good. For athletes, not the other ones were bad, but for athletes who don't have an event to train for and have club racing year round, how does one periodise their training? Do you still need the traditional base block, or can training just be focused on growing the power curve for your chosen duration? So yeah, this is, living in Australia, this is a big thing because we don't really have a season. There's crits on, at least in Sydney, there's crits on all year round. And we don't have a winter, really. So how does one periodise their training? You still need to periodise it, like you still need to pick times of the year where you're backing off the training and recovering. And you still need to pick times of the year where you're committing more time to spending more hours on the bike and doing some sort of loose base training. But in saying that, I don't think, from my experience, that you need to do these big base training blocks like a lot of people do in Europe or America. I think like you'd be surprised if you looked at the top riders in Australia domestically, how little periodization it appears that they have. And I think that's just the nature of racing. Does that then hamper the peaks you're going to get to? Potentially. Like, if you're specifically training for one event and your entire year is focused on that, you could argue that you'd get to a bigger peak if you fully periodise your entire year. But
that's not what this guy wants.
Yeah, it's not, is it? No, you want to be 95% as good, but for more time of the year around. And I think nearly everyone would take that payoff. And do you still need the traditional base block? No, I don't think so. You need to have lower intensity periods, and there still needs to be periodization, but doesn't need to be as strict because you're gonna have racing in the middle. You can't really even do a traditional base training block because there's always racing on. If you love racing, like at least I do, and Chris does.
I've let my thoughts loose on this on many videos in the past, but I do think a lot of people get caught up in the base plan thing because they see pros do it. And that's great for pros who have a really intense 7-month race period of incredible 5-6 hour bike races. We're not training for that. We don't need to do that. So why are you trying to mimic that that performance? So yeah, I think it's a super hard thing to actually get right in terms of, because there's always a race next week, and it's like, should I, like, is that the one I'm going to be peaking for? Like, yeah.
The cynical part of me also thinks that, like, the people that are really pumping out a lot of this is your base training, and I'll say Trainerroad sort of do it a lot, like you're in this phase for 12 weeks. That's more of a way to add structure to someone's training and to kind of make things clearer. Doesn't mean it's, I don't think it's necessarily, I think they push it from a business point of view because it helps structure their training programs, not necessarily because you need it if you've got racing all year round. That's more of a negative way to look at it, I guess. Second part of this question was, for athletes who have a range of training time per week, say 6 to 12 hours, is there any point in having dedicated zone 2 blocks? If the volume remains stable, is there enough overload provided by just doing 12 hours of zone 2 a week versus focusing on intensity that one can recover from and handle?
He just contradict himself there?
No, he was asking, it depends. Like if you're more of a beginner and you've always trained 8 to 10 hours a week, then 10 to 12 hours of zone 2 in a week might be enough to have you progressing. If you're more experienced, then you might need to include some tempo or sweet spot in that to get the overload. But you could start off by doing 12 hours of zone 2 a week if you wanted. As an experiment, you could start off, do 12 hours of zone 2 a week, wait till you feel like, or you see in the numbers that you're not progressing anymore, and swap 1 or 2 of those for tempo, and then swap 1 for sweet spot, and then you can overload that way if you wanted. Yes, there is a point to having dedicated. You can train exclusively in zone 2 and see good improvements if you wanted to do that. I think that sort of answers it. I'm currently in the base phase 2 of a Trainerroad plan. Jeez, I did not script that. I'm not kidding. I'm in the base, this is quite a long one, okay. Base phase of a Trainerroad plan, about 8 weeks into the plan, if it matters, okay. With quite a lot of long sub-threshold sets. Yep. Very little work above FTP. I feel that I have improved on my endurance to ride nearer to threshold power for longer. Cool, very good, you'd expect that. However, it seems my FTP has not really increased. Yeah, well, if you're in the base phase of training, you wouldn't really be expecting to see big jumps in your FTP unless you're a real beginner. If you're a real beginner, you can probably see FTP improvements from your base training, but otherwise, that wouldn't be an expectation, I wouldn't think. I took a ramp set test to reassess my fitness. Ramp tests aren't a good way to estimate your FTP. I know Trainerroad do it, and they give, I think they take 80% of your peak 1 minute value. Or is it 70%? Anyway, they're based on their cohort, but anyway, I won't go ranting about that. But ramp tests aren't an accurate way to estimate your hour-long power. FTP is sitting 3.5 to 3.6 watts per kilo. I'm hoping to get to 4 watts per kilo by the end of this year. What advice would you give me to secure it? Well, my advice would be just to stick with it. Like, if you're only in the base phase and you're at 3.5 to 3.6, then you're going to have to wait till you go through, what's their base build? Yeah, you'd have to wait till you go through their build plan they're going to give to you, and then the specialty plan they're going to give to you, and then you would be expecting to see the FTP increase. If you suddenly went to 4 watts per kilo, which is your goal in the base phase, that doesn't really make much sense. Any other advice? Advice, just stick to what they're giving you, because it'll probably work.
And ride outside. Sounds like you're riding inside too much.
Yeah, so this person has a climb they want to do, and they're estimating they need to be at 4 watts per kilo FTP to do it. Yeah, cool. So hopefully your training plans are timed so that you've got time to get through those phases before then. You should be at 4 watts per kilo by then if you keep progressing.
It's the base phase stuff.
I know, it's really...
Jesus. This is all Trainerroad, is it?
It's Trainerroad, yeah. And like coaches based in like Dylan Johnson on YouTube does a lot of base training stuff because they're in America. They have to because it's snowing for them. They have to follow, or they have like I think Dylan Johnson does a lot of base training stuff, but that's because he's a gravel racer, and they have like a gravel season which spans a couple of like a month or this is one. I want to be fit right here, but it doesn't. Most people don't have that.
No.
All right, I'll go to the next one. Best options / advice for zone 2. Geez, lots of zone 2 questions.
You came to the right person here.
Best options / advice for zone 2 work when dealing with undulating roads and steep inclines.
Oh, here we go.
Just use your gears.
Yeah.
Shift your gears. And be okay going a bit into tempo up a hill. It's not going to ruin your training.
Can I shout one of my videos on that?
Mm-hmm.
What was it? What's it called now? Some of the base training myths, and it was how to ride undulating hills with trying to stay in zone 2. And my biggest takeaway is that when you're going up a hill or you're going up a rise, to try and increase your cadence a little bit, to avoid you stomping too hard on the pedals to sort of spike your power. But then the flip side of that is when you do start coming over the crest of that undulation, to really use your gears and start just boom, 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 start coming back through the gears and stay on the pedals. Try and stay on that power profile that you're hitting. Yes, welcome to part 2. This is where this is part 3.
Yeah.
This is where all bets are off. If you have managed to continue watching up to this point, ladies and gentlemen, you're getting complete off the record. We're going for it. What do you got for us,
Classified
Jesse?
files. This is going to be the first NRS race I've gone to and not raced.
Oh, really?
I've never been and not been racing. Uncharted territories. Very exciting. Very exciting. Before I get into the...
Oh, no, I've done one morning.
One morning?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, actually. Now I think about it. Well, it's kind of... Yeah, anyway, go on.
See, no phone reception. I can't load the comments yet. What I was going to say, before we go to the next question, was... we were chatting about... where to for cycling training? Like, what's the next leap forward? Because Trainerroad are big on the AI. They reckon the next leap forward for cycling training is AI through some sort of adaptive training, machine learning thing to give you the best possible training. Now, I reckon the next leap forward is a combination of your cycling performance with medical tech / wearables. So what I mean by that is, like, you've already got, it's already slowly happening at the moment, like with all the wearable activity trackers using HRV and stuff, but they're just not, it's not good enough, it's not reliable enough. I think Apple said they might be coming out with blood glucose.
The Series 8 is meant to be, well, the Series 7 was rumoured to have blood glucose in it, but the next iteration is rumoured to have blood glucose, which is what that Super Sapiens is doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, whether that's it or if there's going to be some other, thing that comes along. I think being able to accurately measure stress will be a big one. I don't think HRV is there yet. I don't know if it'll ever get there, but an accurate way. So if I'm coaching someone, I can give them a device and be able to see on a clear scale how much their stress day to day is impacting their training. I think if it can be done accurately, that'll be a big one. The other thing I think is, because even Trainerroad's thing is like, well, if we can use machine learning to set the perfect training program, then athletes will progress more. And that's one way of looking at it. My way of looking at it would be, well, what's detracting from someone's fitness? And I think that's where the next leap will be from the medical side of things, is being able to take an athlete or a rider and, but I would be coaching them. So yes, just setting scientifically backed progressive training that will get them fitter, but being able to then see, well, if you're not progressing at all or at a rate that you're happy with, what in yourself medically is holding you back? So things like, whether that's medically, so from a nutrition point of view, are you deficient in something? Is there something lacking in your system? Maybe that's, from a hormone point of view as well. Are you low in testosterone? Are you low in some other hormone? Medically as well. Then being able to look at what are you not only lacking in, but physiologically what is not there. So if you're looking in terms of like a blood test, having a way to be able to more easily do a blood test and get good interpretable results from that. Because at the moment you can get a blood test done, but you're kind of going to your doctor and then you're getting results back which then have to be interpreted in a sport-specific setting, which most cycling coaches aren't going to know how to do. So yeah, I think from that point of view, that's where I see a next leap. Like as a coach, if I could partner with a medical, some sort of medical system to see what's holding back riders, and if there's nothing holding them back, just to have that peace of mind to know that there's nothing going on there. I think that's, I think there's more gains to be made there than in terms of having AI or machine learning setting arguably more perfect training for an athlete.
It's difficult because, like, I've certainly found that, the reality is I know I can train so much and do certain amounts of training, and that will, at this point in my life, only ever get me to a certain point, right? And there's so much other information out there that it's hard to have one centralized, I suppose, like what you were saying there about the blood test. Now I get regular blood tests, and I'm lucky that I have some of these guys to interpret them. But like my local GP, like he looks at it, but he looks at it from a, it sounds mean, but just an average Joe's, like, I'm not going to die from my levels of iron.
Are you sick is what he's looking at.
Is he sick? That's all he cares about. Is there something he can cure? Whereas, I want more information than that. I want, is that level high or low in terms of the amount of stress that I'm putting on my body? I don't know. I just think there's so much scope there.
But what you actually said about there is like, sometimes you feel like you've done enough training and you're at the limit of, sometimes you're like, well, maybe this is my genetic limit. But unless you've gone and this doesn't really exist, at least in a complete package. But unless you've medically screened yourself to look into every avenue of things that could potentially be detracting from your adaptation to training, you might assume you're at your genetic potential, but maybe there's something lacking there, or some other thing. Like, it could even be a metabolic thing. Like maybe your fat oxidation rate isn't where it could be. So you could have the same fitness level, but you could do some tweaks to your training to maximize that and spare glycogen. But unless you have a test for that, how are you ever going to know? Shame it doesn't really exist at the moment. I mean, I can't see it coming in a wearable form anytime soon.
No,
because the level of detail and accuracy you need from that stuff is a lot.
I think sorry, just come back to this, but like the driving factor in this, specifically like in the wearable tech, is not going to be cyclists, and it's not even going to be endurance athletes. The market's just not big enough. It's always going to be led by the fitness industry. Like they're the ones who have the sway when it comes to actual investment in a lot of this stuff. So I think until you see that that particular sort of part of sport wanting to get that information, you're not going to really push it. I mean, you just have to look at like,
it's like how accurately can I measure my calories burn? It's literally like what they want.
We got some questions yet? No.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Best training for a 2-hour. Missed one. Do you have any tips for faster descending? It's easy to do on familiar roads, but what about in a race setting where you don't have any roads, where you don't know the roads? I'll go first. I've got one. I'm probably not the best person to ask because I'm not a great descender, but what I found helped me a lot was having the route up on my Wahoo, so I can see when I'm going down to descent when the sharp corners are coming up. Because otherwise, if you're a bit nervous, you're kind of heavy braking into every corner and slowing down. Whereas if you can have the route up, see when the sharp corners are coming, you know which ones you can just stay off the brakes and just rail. And then, you're like, okay, this is definitely a sharp one, so I'm going to slow down. So I don't know, for me, having the route up helps. That's about it I got.
So one particular scenario when you are let's say you are in a race, I would suggest if there is someone you train with who is a similar enough descender to you or even slightly better than you is always good. Try and follow them on the descent. Get near their wheel for the descent. It's obviously it's good to follow their line, but it can also just relax you because it gives you a sense of familiarity. You know the word. Yeah, a word I'm trying to say. And it can just relax you and take a lot of the peripheral stuff away. That's sort of my one that I used to do.
What about if you're on your own? Descending on your own on an unfamiliar descent. Anything you can do?
Yes, definitely. Two things. Don't look at the things you're trying to avoid. So it's an old skiers one. Look at where you want to go, not at the obstacle that you've spotted. For example, you might be coming into a corner or down a new descent and you see a pothole. Don't stare at the pothole. Turn your eyes to where you want to go. Ideally, that is through the corner. And what else?
Descend in the drops, I'll say. Like if you go out in a week, you descend to Kuna Bay in Sydney on a weekend, you climb up a Kuna Bay on the weekend, and I reckon 75% of people are on the hoods. So I reckon try and get used to descending in the drops. I think people naturally go in the hoods because that's where they spend most of their time, especially if you're like a newer rider. So if you are a newer rider, force yourself for a little while to get in the drops, get used to that, because you might feel a bit nervous at the start, but over time you have a lot more control down there. All right, unless you got anything, we'll go to the next. Troy says, best training for a 2-hour road race with 500 meters of climbing. I can't answer. It's like saying, what's the best way to lose 5 kilos? It's like there's 1,000 different ways. So I can't even answer it. It's just, whatever you enjoy and is backed in some sort of science. Best cheap cycling gear and clothes for budget cyclists. We're probably not the best people to ask because we've been wearing rapha for 2 years and haven't bought. When's the last time you bought your own kit?
Well, I was making kit before that.
So what?
So that doesn't count.
7 years ago, maybe?
It's a good question. What's the last kit I would have bought? don't put this in. So this will like diminish my ability to talk about fashion in the future.
Best cheapest cycling gear. I mean, AliExpress is the obvious one people are going to say. I just find that the shipping is so slow buying stuff from AliExpress. So I kind of, even though it's cheap and some of it could be okay.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So here's the thing when you say this stuff, right? What are you talking about? Are you talking about just jersey and bibs, or are you talking about like good, like all cycling gear, like rain jackets and all the stuff that you rely on? Because if you're just talking about jersey and bibs, honestly, go out and buy any crap you want, because you'll probably get a good summer out of it. You'll get a good bits of a winter out of it, and it'll do you fine.
Yeah, so what brands would you get?
Look, even the AliExpress stuff's fine, the Tonelli stuff's fine.
Everyone rides that Neo Pro.
The Neo Pro stuff's fine. Like it'll get you around the place. It's certainly not the worst stuff. Where you run into problems with any of that is obviously to then have it last for long periods of time or be reliable in tough conditions. All right, so that's always what it boiled down to. And for me, who was someone who tried to start their own Lycra brand, that was always the problem. You could create like bib shorts that were good, like they were solid. You could get a good race season out of them. But my God, by the end of the race season, they were absolutely totaled. So it really comes down to, I suppose, what you want from your cheap stuff. It's like any fast fashion. It's fine. But as always, I'd come back to the thing of like, if you want a good rain jacket or you want a good winter pair of tights, get something that's unfortunately expensive because it's meant to be. But look, other brands that I can think, look, the Tonelli stuff's solid, I have to say.
Do they do retail?
Yeah,
Tonelli?
no, they do some retail stuff, off the rack stuff. The Pearl Izumi stuff's fine.
I've used a bit of the DHB stuff. At least looks pretty good.
Yeah.
The Aeron, whatever it's called, it's pretty. I mean, the good thing about DHB as well, because it's wiggle, is they've got the buying power being such a big.
Yep.
So they're going to be able to do better stuff for a cheaper price than like a smaller budget brand, because they're going to be able to order so much stuff. So I think, yeah, if you're going generic brand stuff, get one from a bigger retailer, because you've got a better chance of it having good quality. That's a theory.
Yeah, good theory. And just after we go past that truck, I will always say, if you're going to run cheaper bib shorts, please make sure they're not sublimated. So sublimated is when it's dyed white lycra, okay? Because then like it will stretch and go, that full fadey white look. Try and get pre-dyed. And
you can't know that, can you, online?
It should all, yeah. They should all say pre-dyed or sublimated on them. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. We'll move on. Using today's plan, well, this can apply for like any training website. What metrics should you be looking at per workout or week? It depends what the session is. Per workout, power is the first thing you should be looking at. Like, how was your power? If you've got heart rate as well, you can be interested per workout. You can then be like, well, was my power where I want it to be? If you've got heart rate, you can then say, well, how was my heart rate compared to that power, and get some insights from that. How did you deal with the heat? How fatigued are you? That sort of thing. So I would say start off with power, then look at how your heart rate was in response to that. What else per workout? That's if training stress score can apply, but again, it depends what is. Yeah, it's a very generic.
I'm boxed in, Jesse.
Oh shit.
Boxed in.
Bushedup.com.
Oh yeah.
Shout out.
Totally stitched
Andrew
me up,
Page
that boy.
90.
Totally stitched me up.
Per week, stick with the basics. duration, total TSS, that sort of stuff, and how much. Yeah, this is depends what if you're coming up to a target race, or if you're racing, you should be wanting to hit some kind of recent PBs or that sort of thing. Like, yeah, if you're in a race sort of period and you're not getting close to any of your PB numbers for a reasonable time period, then that's not a good sign. So maybe you're starting to then compare back onto yourself as you get into your race season. Lucas, sweet spot or polarised? Not. I can't. I don't have the patience.
Can I just quickly say one more thing on the Lycra?
Yeah.
Is that right? So not all really expensive brands are created equal as well. So again, back when I was trying to make Lycra, I discovered that there were 3 particular internet brands that were all actually making the same shorts and literally just putting their own stickers on them. And my point there is that those 3 different brands were in 3 completely different price brackets. So I can't say the brands, that's the problem.
Yeah, but how would you know? Well, yeah. How would you know? Like, yeah.
Can't say the brands.
Yeah.
I like saying that because like some people get really shitty at like, but I paid $400 or $300 for these bib shorts, and they're like, they're only as good as the AliExpress ones that I got. And I'm like, well, in some circumstances they probably are the same as the AliExpress ones. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, just cut that bit out. Can't say it without the brand. Oh, we got a question about the team. Finally, here we go. Who are your lead riders for the road race? So if you're watching this after a couple of days' time, this is the Australian Road Race Champs. That's the race they're talking about. Who are your lead riders? Will Sam be in the mix for a place? Sam, I don't think so. He had a bit of time off after Zwift Academy. So this isn't a target for him. He actually just entered the race, I think, last week. This guy's a loony, sorry.
Sam was a bit of a late entry, so Sam in the mix for a place, I don't think so. Who are the lead riders? Ben Carmen is probably the main guy in the elite race who's been targeting this the most. And also Dylan as well has done a lot of prep for this. So I would say that our 2 main guys to watch would be Ben Carmen and Dylan McKenna. Shout out to the guys.
Can we say something about the way we approach nationals though as well?
Sure.
Like we don't really approach it as we would normally a team race. In a way, guys prepare themselves very much on their own for this race. It's a real specific fitness. It's a real specific preparation. So we don't necessarily put much pressure on the guys to do it. I know some teams put a lot of pressure on this particular race, but we don't go down as a team. We don't put team accommodation together. Most of the guys will go with family. It's very much more that style of event. And it's raced a little bit like that from even the team's perspective. We don't, we're not going to have like Lee sit in the wind for 3 hours for someone to launch at the end. It's not really approached that way. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, it is. And it's also because of the time where it is in the season. Like, it's in start of January and there is a bit of racing after it this year, but most years there's not much after it and there's not much before it. So if you train really hard for nationals, you can find yourself a little screwed a couple of months later because you kind of mistimed your form around when the rest of the National Road Series stuff's on. So.
And also guys are doing different races because then you've got guys doing elites, you've got guys doing the under 23s, you've got guys just doing the crit. So yeah, it's a little bit more broken up. It's not like we all turn up together and like, okay, stage 1, let's all get in the. It's very different to that.
Yeah. Okay. If you were a member, so this is multiple parts. If you're a member of the MCU, who would you be?
Iron Man.
I don't know what the MCU is, so we'll skip that one. Iron Man.
Iron Man.
Okay. Yep. Good pick. Who will you play in the 2022 gritty reboot of American Flyers called Australian Flyers? I don't understand the question, Chris.
Who will you play?
Yeah.
Or who would play you?
Who will you play? Who will play you?
Yeah, who will play you, surely.
Yeah.
I don't know, who's the actor who's going to play you in the movie? That's what they're asking you.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not that... Whoever asked this
Robert
question
Downey
does
Jr.
not know me at all. 'Cause I don't know. I kind of... Yeah. I don't know. If you needed to...
Comment below,
Yeah.
let us know who should play Jesse Coyle.
If you needed to drop training sessions... Here's a question I can answer. Here we go. If you needed to drop training sessions short, e.g. 90 minutes to 60 minutes, which parts would you cut out? Warm
Doctor
up,
Strange.
warm
There you go.
down.
I've answered it for you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Would you cut out the warm up, the warm down, recover between intervals, etc.? Cut out the warm up and cut out the warm up and the cool down. Just get straight into the meat of it. What else could you cut out? Cut out the cafe time. Cut out your if you're doing some pre-ride stretching activation thing, scrap that. Just kit up, get on the bike and just do your efforts. That's what I would say. Chris? What would you cut out?
Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I actually reckon there's like massive that's such a good mindset to almost get into. Just be like,
Stop faffing
just
around.
get it done. I wish I could. Like, I can't. I've got to do my faffing around. And, I got to warm up. And I reckon I actually pay for that a lot of the time. Like, if I don't get a good warm up before a race or something, I'll struggle because I don't do it enough in training. So yeah, I reckon just get straight into it.
Secret message, because if you're watching this far, you're probably over an hour in, and you probably haven't skipped to this exact specific part of the video. So, hello, shout out if you're watching this far. Big pat on the back, because this is, drag it on. Anyway, we soldier on next. Would insulin help carb loading? And if so, do you think athletes use it to gain an advantage? So exogenous insulin, I'm guessing they mean, like would injecting insulin help with carb loading? I don't think it would be necessary. I think your body would be producing enough insulin to absorb the carbohydrates you're eating. I think if you're carb loading, most people just don't eat enough carbs and eat too much fat when they're doing carb loading. If you're doing carb loading properly, you really have to have very little fat, and you have to be drinking a lot of the calories, in my experience. I think the recommendations is like at least 10 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight for the day, if not more, if I could, off the top of my head. And to get that in, you're not eating fruit and rice. You're literally drinking bottles of soft drink. So would exogenous insulin help? I don't think so. I think you'll get an insulin spike from the food you're eating. That should be sufficient to absorb those carbs. I don't think insulin's is sort of rate limiting to that process.
You have carb loaded.
I do it for some. Yeah, not that often, but yeah, I will do a proper carb load for bigger races, like the 6-hour ones.
Yeah.
I hate doing it. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's gross. Next one. 3 interval sessions for crit racing and 3 sprint sessions for crit racing. Can I get a protest non-answer to this question? How good your training is for a crit race is more about how the sessions, how many and what sessions you're doing per week and per month, and how they fit in and how you recover from them. The exact minute detail of each individual session is sort of not that important, as long as you're close enough and if you look up, if you're trying to target something, you can go there's workouts all over the place. I think, I can't, 3 interval sessions for crit racing. I don't know, minute on, minute off for 10 minutes, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 20 minutes. I don't you know what I mean? Like, you just be making stuff up because there's no perfect workout. So yeah, sorry Harrison Smith. What's the best zone and best training for winter if you want to be in great condition in May/June? What's the best zone?
7.
Zone 2.45. You want to be just below the mid of zone 2. No, just kidding. You'll be spending a lot of time in winter if you're following a very periodized training model where you're not doing any racing in winter. You'll be spending a lot of time in zone 2 and 3 for most people. What's the best training to do? I can't answer that. It's impossible.
What was this one?
What's the best training to do in winter if you want to be good in, moving on. Best way to use fasted training. For example, in zone 2 or recovery, what are the benefits to fasted training, if any? What are the benefits to fasted training? Fasted training's a bit of that's not really what... Fasted training isn't really a thing. If you're looking from a sports science point of view, it's more, you would probably say carb periodized training or carb restricted training, not necessarily fasted. And also because these things also usually involve, for example, you might do a carb restricted training ride in the morning, but that involves a reduction of carbs usually after training the night before. So it's not as simple as just not eating breakfast and riding. It needs to be more thought out and nuanced to that if you actually want to do it properly. What are benefits to that? You can increase your body's ability to utilize fat for fuel is one of the benefits. And it can be also a way to lose weight by shifting calories around in the day. I don't think it's a good way to lose weight, but that is a potential benefit. Best way to use it, I wouldn't really recommend using it for many people. If you're an elite, and I'm talking about a professional road cyclist that does fully, the training is supervised, highly supervised training, where your training is advised in conjunction with your nutrition, and it's done in a very specific way. It could be good for you because the massive downsides can be managed. And even then, you're only using it sparingly certain times of the year. Or if you're like an ultra endurance athlete, you could argue there'd be more significant benefits, but you're probably not going to be, that's not applying to many people. For 98% of people, you're better off not doing fasted training or carb periodized training. You'll get more benefits just from recovering better and doing more quality fueled training.
And you're really working at the margin, like at the minute margins that most of us aren't really needing to find gains at. Mm-hmm. Like,
yep, I agree.
It also makes riding your bike so horrible. Have you done this fasted riding where you go out on no food and then drink water for 4 hours? It's horrible. Like,
even if you're doing it for 2 hours, I mean, it's hard enough. Oh. It's hard enough to eat healthy and train, let alone eating healthy and training and then trying to mix the two. It's just,
I guarantee most people that do it as well, like, would go out, okay, fasted ride, have 2 hours, drink water, come home, be mentally strong for another hour, and let's say they have like just a banana or something. And I reckon like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're on the hunt. And it's deep into all kinds of biscuits and chips and lollies and like all bets are off.
You can't help it. You would be.
Yeah.
Even if most people would. And even then, I mean, like maybe I need to do another video on it. There's like 5 or 6 different ways in research they do carb periodized training. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's only one of them has been proven to actually have some benefit. The others don't really have much benefit. And one of the reasons for that is because what they think is more experienced cyclists naturally already have most of the adaptations because you inadvertently train. When you're in a normal training week, you'll inadvertently do sessions with slightly depleted glycogen. So those, you're already getting, just through normal training, some of the benefits of that because you don't eat enough after a ride, and then the next ride you're already somewhat depleted. So even if you're not intentionally doing fasted training, you're probably already getting some of the benefits.
Yeah.
Naturally. Okay, I'll leave that one there. Given many of us are dealing with, I don't want to say that because I don't want to trigger the algorithm.
Should we do a fasted ride in Adelaide next week?
No thanks.
No, actually.
Okay. It'd be good to do for maybe
That's what
for,
I mean.
yeah.
Do it and be like, you be fasted, I be fueled.
Is riding Monday, Friday,
Ooh.
then Saturday, long ride, a way to gain fitness? I'm not sure if the 4-day gap between rides is limiting fitness. It's a triathlete, so struggle for time, thanks. First thing, for triathlete, you're doing other training in those days, so it's less of a concern. If you are only riding Monday, Friday, Saturday long ride, it depends what level you're at. I'd say, yeah, that'd probably be more of a maintenance thing. I think you'd struggle to see too much of a significant increase in fitness just riding 3 days a week. At least long term. If you're really ripped in 3 days a week, you could probably improve for a month. But yeah, ideally, but if you're a triathlete, it doesn't matter because you're going to be you're doing other training. As a vegan, I'm technically not vegan anymore. I'm predominantly plant-based, but not vegan. Do you use SIS rego, and is it okay for vegans? SIS rego isn't vegan because the vitamin D, I mentioned this in my recovery shake review video. The vitamin D source in SIS rego comes from animal sources, so it's not vegan. So yeah, if that's an issue for you, yeah, if you don't want to have that, yeah. I mean, I think it's a good product, but it's not technically vegan. Next one, Dylan. I can maintain a decent rolling speed, say above 30 kilometers an hour for long distances in group rides, but I'm largely a high cadence rider. Should I be training my body to spin less with low cadence work? I would say no. People naturally perform best at their optimal cadence, and for you, your optimal cadence appears to be slightly higher, which is fine. That's good. Should you be doing, should you do low cadence work to drive that down? No. You might want to include low cadence work for reasons discussed an hour and a half prior in this video.
3 weeks ago, yeah.
But that wouldn't be to drive, you don't want to change, I don't see it, there's no reason why you would do it to drive down your natural preferred cadence.
So are you inferring that he rides at 30 k's an hour in a group ride, but then when he's riding by himself, his cadence drops? Is that what he's saying?
No, he's saying should he include low cadence sessions,
right?
To teach his body to spin less.
Okay, because he thinks he's spinning too much.
Yeah.
I think it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Like most of us do grind a little bit too much, so it's let's lean into your strengths there by the sound of it.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with that at all. I'm going to skip this one. People are obsessed. What does Chris do for a living? Rides his
drives
bike.
around.
YouTube. What is the actual definition of a hubbard? I don't know, actually. What is the definition of a hubbard? I think it's just a look and a vibe, I think. I think that's a definition. Big hubbard. I don't know. Matthew Vanderpool or Wout van Aert?
Wow.
Okay. I'm MVDP. He's got more swagger.
Oh, he definitely has more swagger. No two ways about it.
Wout van Aert seems a lot nicer in races. Like he always overpulls when he's in a move, and he never is mouthy, and which I kind of like the Vanderpool's a bit more of a dick. It seems.
And plus, I mean, for me, Wout's done a lot of the team stuff. Like, sits on the front for primos, has mountain domestique. Like, I don't know, I just think, Van der Poel's sort of done a half lead out for Malia every now and again, and not that means that, like, he's a bad dude or anything, but just, for me, I don't know, Wout's definitely got a bit more about him.
Yeah. A little bit more respect for the man. What's the difference between your worst level of fitness and the best level of fitness? Have you had substantial jumps in fitness from training/riding, or were you always relatively strong? I'll go first. I pride myself on being consistent with my training, so I've never really had a terrible level of fitness since I started cycling, because I don't let myself get that unfit. Like, even if I don't feel like it, I'll at least ride twice a week just to make sure I don't lose too much fitness. So I've never had that bad level of fitness. What about you, Chris?
I'm addicted to bike riding. No. I mean, it's a problem. I've had this discussion with him many times. It's like, I have a problem. I just absolutely need to go for bike rides. The last week was the first 4 days I've had off the bike in about 4 years. And that's included times where I've had big crashes and stuff like that. So, for me, I probably should have let my fitness drop more than I have in the past. But I don't know, I just love it too much. I just love getting on my bike and riding it. So, that's...
I think,
that's just the truth.
Pretty much the same answer there. Because I don't love riding my bike, I just love being fit, so I don't let myself get unfit. I don't necessarily love riding that much, as you may be able to tell. FTP is only one part of the picture, and I know there are other measures of fitness which are more useful in certain races compared to others. However, it seems pretty important. What per kilo FTP are you guys pushing for your FTP and the level? What per kilo FTP are you guys pushing for your FTP and the level you're at? For I think what he means is what per kilo FTP for the racing we do.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think everyone above 5 watts per kilo, minute, to be a decent NRS rider.
What were we doing those tests at before Brisbane? Probably the last time I saw it.
Oh, I haven't done an FTP test.
No,
well, I know what my FTP. I can't remember what you were. But we're usually above 5 watts per kilo.
Yeah.
If you're doing well, you kind of domestically you want to be up sort of 5 point. Sort of mid fives if you're really good. But then there's a lot of riders that are there that don't get results, and other riders that aren't there that get results. So anyway, grain of salt. Do you consider it to be important? Yeah. I mean, if you charted riders' FTPs, raw and watts per kilo with their results, there would be a strong correlation, you'd have to imagine. Hey, great channel, and talk about training for 2 minutes. Hey, great channel, thanks. Talk about training for 2 minute, 5 minute, and 10 minute KOMs on Strava. I've done a training review of my training to increase my 10 minute power. I can't really, that's probably you're doing, I can't really, it's too general to talk about that one. Is EXP worth the extra for DT Swiss hubs? I think, is that like the, where you got more ratchets in the free hub? Is that what that thing is? It's like more pawls or whatever? I think that's what that means.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Wrong people to ask.
I don't know. Have heard riders had issues with them. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. Recommend best set of carbon wheels under $1,500. I don't know. I haven't used them all. He said here, Windspace Fast Sports Light Bicycle. I've used the Fast Sports one in the past.
Yeah, I use the Fast Sports one.
They're pretty good. But even the brand, I think lots of brand name ones have come down in price now. I feel like you look around, especially if they're not like the newest year models, even some of the brand name ones you can usually get for not too far above $1,500. And at least then if you happen to have an issue, you can take it back. Or, if you're buying it from a shop, you got a point of contact, as opposed to if you order them from China. It's a bit of a stitch up. Would you consider sponsoring someone trying to... I'm not going to answer that. Hey, Jesse, I'm a junior weighing in at about 50 kilos, and I'm able to climb really well in group rides, I do, but I struggle on the flats. I'm not sure if this is a stupid question, but is there specific training that helped me with the flats, or do I just need to boost my FTP? Yeah, as a 50 kilo rider, you're naturally going to be at more of a disadvantage on the flats. I'd say work on your bunch riding skills to suck wheels better, to save energy. And you just need to train to get fitter. As you get fitter, you will...
you'll get stronger.
Yeah, you'll get stronger and you'll be better. There's not a stupid question. I'd just say there's nothing specific you would, don't freak out and be like, I need to go and gain 10 kilos so I can hold on the flat. Just, stick with your progression and be ride your bike smarter. Hi Jesse, I'm in my base training, I'm in my base training and would like to get your opinion on a good week of base. How much tempo zone 2 and should I have some higher intensity? Keep up the good work on YouTube. Thanks, Robert. I would say how much I can't answer because it depends it's too individual. I would say though, to answer the second bit, should I have some higher intensity? Yes, especially as you come towards the end of your base training and more into pre-season where maybe you're going out and doing some group rides or you're just starting to get into racing, you will respond, they've done research on it, you will respond better to that training if you have done some higher intensity work in your base training. So I will, an example you might want to do is just do your normal base training, but 1 session per week, include 9 30-second high intensity efforts in. And then they've shown that when you then go to do your next phase of training, you will get a better response as compared to doing no intensity and you've just done pure base training. So yeah, I would say maximum once per week, but maybe just once per fortnight include some maximal efforts, short efforts, definitely. What do you each value about cycling, i.e. why do you do it? What do you like about it? What does it offer you that compels you to devote time and energy to it? Why cycling and not some other sport? Chris, you want to go first?
Wow. Should have asked me this question before.
No, this is it.
I'll have to think about this.
All right, I'll go first then. I'll go. Have a think, Chris. I'll go. What do I value about cycling? Well, it's like my entire life now, so I'm stuck. It's my job and it's what I do for fun. So why do you do it? It's a hobby like anything. I mean, why does anyone do any hobby? It's a competitive outlet and it's something I'm good at. I think people naturally like to do things they're good at. So it's probably that. What do you like about it? I like that it's both a physical challenge and a tactical and smarts challenge. I think there's other sports that are far more just physical in nature, which I don't necessarily like. I kind of like the mix of both, where I can be on top form and have fun and try and ride people off the wheel, or I can do less training and still try and get results through racing a little bit smarter. That's kind of what I like.
Look, for me, it's very much so you separate cycling and bike racing. Cycling is great. I like, as I said before, riding my bike, new places, new things. That's all wonderful and happy days. But it is the bike racing part that is totally fascinating to me. It's completely all encompassing. Like Jesse said, it's such a unique sport in the sense that it has. It's such a unique sport in the sense that it has this massive physical component that we've literally just spent 3 hours talking about, base training. But then there's these other two elements. There's the tactical part, which is incredibly important. And then there's the skill part. There's the actual, you have to perform the skill of riding the bike, turning corners and navigating bunches and attacking out of bends and up hills and riding out of the south. It's got these three elements. Then you throw in top of that the equipment side of it, which has just got all the other sort of technology aspects to it. You throw in a bit of community, a bit of people doing the same thing.
Bit of an
massive adrenaline rush, endorphins, competitive aspect. It's kind of got everything for me. And very much like Jesse, like I'm in it for the long haul now, obviously starting the team from the perspective of not liking how teams were run, and the more we kind of go, the further we tick along, we sort of see more and more different ways that the team could be different. I find that really sort of fascinating. So yeah, it's completely all-encompassing, and that's coming from someone who pretty much played every sport there was. So yeah.
Good answer. Is all TSS equal? E.g., if I did a week with 700 TSS all endurance, is my fatigue at the end of the week the same as if I had did a week of 700 TSS of FTP or above efforts? No, all TSS isn't equal. You could do, firstly, the stress, the hormonal response, the stress response of doing higher intensity training is more. That's one of the benefits of doing endurance rides and endurance training, is there's less of a stress response and impact on your body in that way. And also, like, what do you, like, you could do, even like if you did 700 TSS of all endurance, but one of them you did it at like 50 RPM and one of them you did it at your preferred cadence. Like, cadence variation can cause more fatigue, heat can cause fatigue. Like, no, all TSS isn't equal. And it's something you should account for in your training and keep notes on.
And it comes back to what we were saying before about, like, you know, how we can hopefully get more measurables, because, you know, people keep coming back to TSS and CTL, but there's so many shortcomings in it that, like, if we could broaden that and get some bloods in there and get some glucose in there, we'd really see what actually every training session was doing. Like, we're driving out to, well, we've passed it now, but Wagga, and like both of us still mark as like one of those Wagga handicaps, which was like 2 hours. It was less than 2 hour bike race. It was probably an hour and a half, right? But it was one of the hardest bike races any of us have ever done, because it was hot, really hot, dry heat, which we're not used to. We hadn't done any heat work, and it was one of those ones where it's just straight onto sort of intensity and it never dropped down. Completely flat. You could literally sit on, but it was still horribly hard. And the TSS mark from after it was the same as me doing 2 hours of slop in Centennial Park. So it's like, yeah, I know Sam Hill will be disappointed to hear that, because he's a TSS man.
Jockey, ride the wave, ride the CTL. Yeah. It's all about style. White socks and black shoes. White socks, black shoes. Yeah, I say yes.
Is that a statement or a question?
Quick fire.
Depends what kind of shoes you got. All black shoes not created equal. If you're running shiny, shitty black shoes, no, absolutely terrible. If you got nice matte, low profile black shoes, then yes. And I'm sorry, I said this in the video that I've done on this in the past, you got to have tanned legs. Oh. Sorry, you can't be a white freckly dude and pull that off.
That is racist. Moving on. Why do you roll up your jersey sleeves on hot days?
I've seen this question a few times, actually.
Well, because if I'm wearing a t-shirt, all our rapha jerseys go down to the elbow, which looks awesome on the bike, but look at this. So that's why you roll the sleeves up. So then when you're wearing a t-shirt, you've got a normal tan line. That's why I do it anyway. And it's like it's a vibe. It's a vibe check. You roll your sleeves up, you know.
Right. I haven't told you. I've been running. I've been base layering all summer.
Oh, that's gonna. Well, just hold that thought.
Yeah.
Black helmet or white helmet? White helmet's more visible and it's not as hot.
Yeah.
Base layer on upper, hot day, or just a jersey?
Okay, but don't knock it till you try it.
I have tried it. It's hotter. It's literally another piece of clothing.
You got to try it properly.
In between your skin.
You've got to try it with a good base layer.
I've used the rapha ones.
I put my flag down at the beginning of the summer, and I was like, right, I'm going to try this. I've heard all the marketing. I'm going to buy in, see if I can pull it off. Now, I haven't ridden in anything above like 33 yet, so the debate's still there, but in the really, really humid stuff that I was in last week, and it was like 95 was just pure Sweatsville, I actually rated it.
You felt why? Did you feel cooler? You think it's cooling you down more?
No, I felt less slop. Because normally, I'm just literally dropping everywhere.
Okay.
And I did feel like I would cool quicker when I get to descends and things like that.
Okay.
So I think there is genuinely something in it.
All right. Okay. All right. We'll leave that one to the bookies. Rapha, Maap, Attaque, Paz Normal Studios, fave. Well, obviously Rapha. PNS, that is such a rip-off. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How is that in? That is
How is
such.
that a brand?
That is such. It's literally double the price of like every other kit. I don't understand. Yeah. Okay.
I've never ridden any of them, so
Well,
I'll
yeah.
be honest. Apart from
Yeah.
Rapha.
Favorite road bike. I got to think for BMCs. The rim brake.
I thought
The
you were
ri-
Lapierre, man.
Oh, actually, no. Yeah, no. So I am actually Lapierre. Always rim brake still, but the Lapierre, I like this. The seat tube top thing, whatever that thing's called. That junction looks
Yeah.
cool. I rate those frames, and the old school BMC SLRs, or the Team Machine. The SLR. I rated those. I reckon they're sick.
So, favourite bike I owned was definitely the White Legend 9.5
No
that
one knows what that
Felice
is.
had. It was a custom. It was a custom job.
And I'm not
Had-
finding this point in the video to insert a photo of it.
It was
So you'll have
a
to-
record, super record EPS. It was literally sex.
That was a very good
It
looking
was
bike.
a
at
very
least.
nice
Yeah.
bike.
It was.
And the custom Geo was very good.
Yeah.
I've always had a weird thing for a giant TCR. I've never ridden one, ever, but I've always got that Sunweb version from like when Michael Matthews was on it, and they just before
Oh,
they went
mhm.
to disc,
Yeah.
rated that.
The ISP though, that's slop.
Oh yeah,
Like, that is so inconvenient. I
Yeah.
reckon.
but it was
'Cause
before
you have to
that.
you have to get the model down. You have to get the model down. That ISP's been around for yonks.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. But the non-pro model doesn't have it. I don't think.
Always rated a Cannondale Super 6, the high mod,
Yeah.
just with the FS or the Cannondale hologram crankset, that like spider crankset. I always love the look of that. These are all bikes that I've never ridden, I might add. And the Deville A02.
Oh.
Coming soon.
Oh yeah. Spoiler. I got a title for this video: World's longest cycling Q&A. Do you reckon there's been a longer one? We must nearly be on 2 hours by now. Or is this still? I hope the audio is still going. Yeah, I think
Just
we're
like
good.
to apologise for anyone
Okay.
actually watching this.
Next, which editing software do you use? Also, tell Chris to bring back your race vlogs. Please bring.
Got to
back
bring
your
races
race
back
vlogs.
first, mate.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm going to do that at Nationals. But okay, can I quickly say this before we do? It's really like they don't get views on YouTube. I'm going to keep doing them because they're the favourite thing to do. But it is really disappointing that it doesn't like. A lot of time, a lot of effort goes into them, and obviously even from the guys that are racing, because I hassle them half the time for like content and bike cameras, and yeah, they don't resonate enough. So if you've got any ideas for how we can kind of
No, I think you need to sit down with the guys and get them to talk through the entire race, because like NorCal cycling guy,
yeah,
all he does is race GoPro footage, and then he's got gets
so
shitloads
just
of
in
views.
race stuff, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's not cut up. It's not like sort of edited. It's kind of just them talking about the race.
And what, they just record the whole race?
Oh, so yeah. Well, he cuts it up. There might be like 20 or 30 minute
Okay.
things, but they've got the person. Usually, they'll either chat to the person who's in the race,
Yep.
or it's more of like a commentary.
Okay. All right.
Like
we can
imagine if
try
you could
that.
get Ben Carmen to talk about his like that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to do over if you're not with them.
Yes.
Yeah, there'd be a way. There'd be a way.
It's hard to get these guys to do this stuff, though. I'm sorry. It just is.
What editing software do you use? I use iMovie. I use
Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut Pro. Do you actually buy Rapha clothes with your own money? Yeah. So we have a discount that we use to buy the mainline stuff. Obviously, we get stuff from the team, but then the rest of the stuff like the shoes and other bits and pieces that we've bought with our own money. Do a collaboration with GP Lama instead while you were there. Oh yeah, he lives in Ballarat. What would we talk about? Trainers? I don't know. Hi Jesse, I'm prioritising TTing at the start of this race season. I'll still be doing road racing and crits in this time, but have a couple of TTing goals. Okay, yep. I feel my training for the TT is spot on, but how do I keep my snap/sprint relatively competitive for the road races/crits in training at the same time? Is there anything you'd recommend? Currently, sprint efforts don't feature much on my plan at all. Well, yeah, there's your answer. You can still do sprint efforts. Do a sprint session once per week. You should be able to fit that in somewhere in your training. I would sort of recommend as well, to get the biggest bang for your buck, do it after a rest day. So have a rest day, do a sprint session, and then the rest of the week just do all your time trial training. Why aren't you rolling up to the start line at Nationals?
Because he's a big fatty and he's unfit.
Yeah, what's your excuse?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I haven't been riding enough.
None of us have.
No.
Though annoyingly, everyone, he will get fit so quickly. It's disgusting. Like, he'll do like literally 1 week of good training in Centennial, and you watch, it will be like, oh, I'm back winning. It's disgusting.
I feel that in the last years there are more and more older riders, men and women, coming to the sport late and still reaching quite a high level. Really cool to see. But why wasn't that the case 10 to 20 years ago?
Great question.
I
We were
wasn't
almost
riding,
talking about that earlier on.
Well, yeah, when we were talking about the sort of, what holds people back.
Yeah.
And not necessarily it being their training. I mean, I don't know. Was that the case, really? I mean, you might seem... I don't know if that was necessarily not the case 10 or 20 years ago, but assuming it was, I think people know how to train. People know how to train. There's more coaches. People are doing better training. But 20 to 20 years ago, what were people doing? Oh, ride the 53-12, for 10 minutes. People were doing just dumb stuff. There was no sports nutrition. People didn't really fuel properly. People trained like crap. So yeah, the young guys would probably get through, but no one, no 40-year-old's going to be able to is going to be able to deal with that type of training. That's my theory.
I think there's a lot of aspects to this. We give social media a lot of shit, but I do think that it plays a role in even bringing groups of like middle-aged people together and getting them on bikes, because even my friends that I went to school with will see in their Instagram feeds or Facebook feeds, guys out on bikes riding around. Oh, that looks like fun. I'll get into that. And a lot of these people are coming from lifetime sports anyway. They might have rode, they might have played cricket, rugby, whatever. So they've got a bit of sporting nous about them. But now, like, bike riding is more in their face a little bit. So you're seeing a lot of people getting into it at an older age, just due to them seeing it. I think the coaching element, definitely. The technology of power meters, like he just said, like there's a metric to chase. Like people at any age love starting to do that. I mean, sitting here answering these questions with him, the amount of people that have talked about like what's your FTP and all this kind of stuff, these are all metrics that people are chasing. So I think that's another reason for it. What else? Jeez. All the great people on YouTube creating fantastic content that's bringing people into the sport. No, but it's genuinely like, so the sport becomes more accessible. Bike racing becomes more accessible because you see it. Like even when we started racing bikes, which was not that long ago, it was less than 10 years ago, it was like, where do you go? Like there's like a secret handshake to turn up to do a bike race. Now, like, every bike race has sort of 60 photos on Facebook and you know exactly where it is. So, I don't know. There's lots of reasons like that. Hopefully...
Sorry. Yeah.
That's all right.
No, I reckon Zwift plays a part in saying that, making it more accessible. There is a large proportion of masters that use Zwift, I reckon they love it. It's like accessible video, because they're probably not into video games, the masters, but it's like sort of fun. It gets them into that tech side. I reckon that helps a lot.
Yeah. And I think what you're starting to see now in the sport is it's becoming far more multicultural, way more. You're seeing people of all races, creeds, everything now starting to get into bikes, and this is potentially where it starts to explode.
Not
hopefully.
at the pro level.
No, not at the pro level.
But,
God,
yeah,
no.
the
But certainly,
level.
you know, certainly at the leisure level.
All right. What are your thoughts on Hickson protocol training? See the linear increase in aerobic power paper. Yes, I'm not going to look that up. I'm not aware of the Hickson protocol training. How long did it take you to be at this level?
It was disgustingly fast.
No, it wasn't. I've been cycling since 2015. I do think my endurance sport background from rowing, which I've been doing since 2010, since 2010 helped. So 2010, 2015, endurance training from rowing, which helped. And then, so well, it's a long time. It's like 11 years of training like an elite athlete. What about you? How long did it take you to get to this level?
I almost just killed that person. Sorry. 2 seconds.
Yeah, good.
We're good.
You've probably got more of a traditional background. How long did it take you to get fit?
Well, so it's hard, yeah. So I started commuting to work in Ireland in about 2006, I think, 2007. Started wearing Lycra in about 2010. Did my first C-grade race at West Head in 2011. Kind of came through the ranks of the clubs in the following years and started racing NRS with park bikes, funnily enough.
That was what, 2014?
2015.
2015. So it was about 5 years then, roughly, you'd probably say.
Yeah.
Seems to be around the number 4 or 5 years, usually.
Different background. So I didn't come from endurance sport. I played like ball sports, so cricket, rugby, that stuff.
Yeah. All right. So how long did it take you to be at this level? Both of us then, 4 or 5 years roughly from when we started doing road cycling. What's on your calendar for your racing? We've both just got the National Road Series calendar, and hopefully some overseas racing pops up, but it's still very uncertain at the moment. And local stuff getting into Chris is going to win a Beaumont Road criteria in Sydney this year.
My life goal.
That's the goal.
It's a life goal. Look out, Potter.
Excuse me, are you taking the car to Ballarat? Sydney to Ballarat is less than 1,000 kilometres. Come on, that's 2-day bike ride or 2-week run. Stay hard.
A 2-week run?
Yeah.
What?
2 week. Yeah.
Oh,
just tap it out. Just stay endurance. Base training. Endurance.
Just a little tap down the hill.
Yeah. Just don't spike up the hills. You'll be right. Quick question to Chris. Socks over. Oh, geez. What about me? Hey. Socks over or under leg warmers?
Ooh, I like this. So 99% of the time under leg warmers, definitely. No, 100% of the time, actually. Yeah.
I think. I know you didn't ask me, did you? But I'll answer anyway. I'll say socks under, but pull the leg warmers up a little bit so they're not right down to the ankle.
Yeah.
So you've got a good sort of gap between the top of the shoe, and it sort of elongates your leg.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the pros do. Looks good. Don't have the warmers right down to the shoe. It looks ugh.
And also, I was going to say, if you've got the option of coloured shoes work well with leg warmers. So if you've got the orange shoe or something like that, you can pull it off with leg warmers. You're more likely to pull it off with leg warmers than just your bare logs.
Your ham hocks. I'm doing 3 peaks in March 2022 for the first time.
You going to do it?
No.
Oh.
I'm averaging 300 to 400 kilometres per week. What should my taper look like?
A couple of reps of falls the day before.
Just open
Tap it up.
The taper. If you've done a big training block, I kind of recommend freshen up the week before. Just relax, like cut the volume out the week before, and then just then build a little bit of load back in the week of the race. There's so many different ways to taper. That's the way I recommend and get most of my riders to do. I don't really like freshening up too much the week of the event, because then you can find like 2 weeks after you're flying. I find a lot of the time people do a taper week and then 2 weeks later they got all this form. So freshen up. Well, up to you, but I would say freshen up the week
really
before.
different there. Like you ride quite a lot in that taper week.
Yeah.
Whereas like Sam Hill or something will literally ride to the bloody letterbox and back, and that's it, done.
Yeah. Everyone is a bit different.
Yeah.
For those riding for another 3 peaks one. For those riding 3 peaks and trying to get inside the cutoff or scrape in sub 10 hours, i.e. not racing, sub 10 is still racing.
10,
that's pretty
Jesus,
quick.
yeah.
That like a sub, yeah.
Back in the day, sub 10.
Like if you're doing a sub 10,
like you're
a pretty good like B. That's like a B grade
Mm.
level. Like that's pretty solid. I wouldn't. Yeah, don't write that off. Is it a high? Do you still need to do a high carb intake? So 60 to 90 grams per hour still imperative, or does a lower intensity mean carb intake can also be lower? Yeah. So yes. Like
why? Why would you do that?
Well, to a degree. Like if you're out there for longer, you're not going to need as many grams of carbs per hour. Like because you're going to be burning through less energy. But I would still say intake the max that you can handle. So, if you're out there for 10 hours still, I wouldn't say specifically, oh, you can handle 80 grams an hour fine, but just do 60. Like, no, you'll when you finish the ride, you'll be in a deficit no matter how many grams of carbs you've eaten. So you may as well try and get in as many as you can comfortably handle without feeling sick.
Which was my point in saying why, because it's not like you get to the end and you're like, oh, well, I overfueled that, so that's why I'm feeling so great right now. Like
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is a high carbohydrate still imperative? Yes. Oh, that was the first part of it. Yes. A high carbohydrate intake is still imperative. Yes. 100%. Even if it takes you 10 hours, you're still going to be going hard up the climbs. It's not like you're just spinning along easy. You're climbing like mountains. So, yeah.
And if you do fuel it properly, you might be able to not do that stop that you normally do, and then you've saved yourself 20 minutes. Like, it's like there's just so many advantages to it.
Totes. Are you guys running an electric, unleaded, or diesel vehicle down to Melbourne?
Unleaded.
Unleaded.
Love an electric.
Yeah.
If you know any
how many times would we have had to stop if we were running an electric car?
I'd still get around it.
Alright,
It's just
bloody hippie.
Yeah.
Latex versus TPU versus butyl inner tube. What's a TPU?
Isn't that
Textured
tubeless?
Polyurethane?
Isn't
No, I think
it
that's a
tubeless?
different type of tube.
Oh, okay.
If you're running tubes,
latex.
Yeah,
just
I ran
ones
latex.
I use. Latex.
Yeah, I
Or
used
latex
to.
tubes in a good tire, like a High Road SL, real supple tire, or like a S-Works Turbo Cotton is like really quick and nice, and like that's what Alaphilippe's been using to win. But I would still say tubeless if you can. If your wheels are tubeless compatible, give it a crack. Just give it a go. If you were a cake, what type of cake would you be?
Question. Personally, sticky dough pudding. I know it's not technically a cake, but it would be a sticky dough pudding with butter. Yeah.
Yep. Sticky dough. Yeah, okay. Just standard chocolate cake that hits the spot. And if you were not sponsored by Devel, what other bikes would you like to ride? I think we answered that. We sort of went through that. But here's the thing, like we're on rim brake Devels, and most of the bikes we just mentioned, you can't get in rim brake anymore.
Yeah.
So we kind of got the best. Why aren't you both racing? We haven't been running enough. Do you still? Here we go. Are we nearly the third hour? No, I think we're about 2.5. Do you still? Do you still think doping? We always. What car chat don't you get into the doping? We're into it.
Let's delve in.
Do you still think doping is an issue in the World Tour?
Yes.
Riders have spoken about 2 speeds in the peloton, with ab speeds as fast now as in the doping generation of the 90s and 2000s. Okay. On the average speed thing, I don't discount just like riders are overall fitter now in terms of the depth of the peloton. Riders are also better fueled, so you'll just see higher average speeds because the racing's harder, more aerodynamic gear, better positions, blah, 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 blah. If you actually look at the climbing speeds now, they are slower. The top climbing speeds now aren't as fast as your Pantanis and
It's because they're all on disc
Contador. And like Contador back in the day. So the climbing speeds actually are slower. But I do think, is doping still an issue? I would be surprised. Be surprised if the top riders weren't doing something. I think it's more intricate now though. It'd be more experimental drugs that aren't banned yet, new drugs, as opposed to like, trying to take stuff that's banned and not get detected.
My take at the moment is like, I firmly believe that the majority of professional, especially male professional sport has an element of doping in it. And I'm talking about rugby league, AFL, tennis, athletics. I still think there's massive amounts at it at the professional level. I genuinely think cycling is, like Jesse said, there's probably still remnants of it, still just pushing the absolute tiny margins, but I don't think it's actually as ingrained as some of those other sports.
Well, yeah, you look at like rugby. Look at rugby league. Like you just look at the players. They're obviously on a lot of testosterone. Like, look at the size of them. That's not normal.
I mean, I think tennis is one that is really, interesting at the moment. I don't know if you paid any attention to this, but with the Novak Djokovic stuff at the moment, you know how he was, they called him out for saying that he'd left the country. Did you have been following any of this? Yeah. Well, so he lied about where he was, right? Now, if he was a cyclist and he lied about where he was, he would be up for a potential breach of his whereabouts and potentially a 4-year doping ban because of that action. So, the truth is that cycling is monitoring its athletes far more stringently than some of these other sports are. So, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I think they would definitely be craftier at the top level of cycling with what they're doing. But yeah, I would say it's probably still an issue, but I don't know. Age-old question. Next one. Hey Jesse, I'm predominantly a runner and I don't cycle much. However, I've been cycling to and from work 4 days a week and do competitive group rides on Tuesday mornings. I want to integrate cycling workout into my commute. It's an 18k commute each way. What is 1 or 2 workouts you'd integrate into these commutes to make me fitter? Anything. At this point, this is what I mean. It's like, I want to improve my 30-minute power. It's hard to answer. I'm not going to answer, because if I gave an answer, I'd just be pulling something out of my ass. Because it's like, go do 10-minute efforts and go do some 30 on 30 offs. I mean, I'd like, in something that's so vague and unstructured, it doesn't really mean, like, if you just do something, you'll be getting fitter, especially if you're only doing commutes. So yeah, sorry, I can't really nail that one down. I find myself riding in the tempo range most of the time because I live in an area with lots of steep hills. I don't know how to get up them easy. Is it really counterproductive to not ride in zone 2 very often, or just do a little less optimal? Is it counterproductive to not ride in zone 2 very often? Well, it depends. If like a zone 2 ride's part of the training you want to be doing. If you are intending to do lower intensity rides, like a zone 2 ride, then yeah, it is going to be counterproductive to be surging tempo and above up every steep hill. So, yeah. You don't know how to go up them easy. Just drop it into the little ring. Just get easier gearing. Just don't...
Riding up them too hard isn't really that big a issue. It's more what you do at the top and over the top. Like if you then just sit up and like freewheel for a while and, you know, chill her out, and like that's where you're really losing any potential for endurance fitness. Like, okay, maybe you rode up the hill in tempo, but...
Well, it depends on how it depends on how that, you know, what, if that endurance ride is in a specific place in your training program and you keep doing it too hard, I think it could potentially be counterproductive. But yeah, like if you're just again, another one, it's too hard to answer, sort of, to give definitively. But yeah, as Chris said, if you're freewheeling every descent.
So the thing that you'll learn with Jesse is that he doesn't do like plug and play stuff. Like none of the guys are like that. It's how it fits into the whole story, right? Like, and that's why he keeps just saying to you, like, go choose an interval session. It doesn't really matter. They're all going to kind of get you fitter, but that will only get to a point, and then there's a point where it's where does that fit into the rest of your program, and you know.
That's why I'm surprised that some of the questions, like a lot of the questions we're reading, are like that, because I'm like, do these people not? I mean, I'm guessing the people commenting don't have a coach and they're kind of just doing train. I think a lot of these people probably aren't following a training program. Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, well, why are you concerned with, you know, is going into your tempo range, going up a hill counterproductive when you're training, when you're not even really, you're not following a training program anyway? It's kind of like, it's asking a very specific question.
Because I imagine they've probably watched like 18 videos from people telling them how to get fit, or the top 5 ways to build your fitness, or the top 6 methods of riding fast, and one of them would have been, you know, start with base training. I can kind of understand, because there's all that info out there.
Yeah, so then you're sort of obsessing about something which doesn't even apply to you because you're not actually training. You're just enjoying riding your bike, and that's fine. Do you have any tips for when life/family, etc. gets in the way of a structured training program or big block and you miss a couple of sessions? Okay, I like this one. I find myself anxious to do more, or concerned I've taken a step backwards, which can sometimes knock my mood. I know I just need to trust the process. Okay, so miss a couple of sessions, don't worry about it. Just carry on. Do you have any tips? I would say try and avoid the situation to begin with. Like if you miss 1 or 2, if family comes up or you're a bit busy with work or whatever, you miss 1 or 2, don't worry about it, just write it off. But if you're finding that you're consistently missing like 4 or 5 days, then I would say try harder not to miss 4 or 5 days. Like even if it means you're just doing shorter rides, or as long as, because if you can just do something to keep your systems ticking over, then it's not detracting really from your training at all. You can just carry on as normal. So, I mean, what do you reckon, Chris?
My thought would be more about what are the practical reasons that are stopping you from doing those sessions. I mean, you say things like family, that kind of stuff. Break that down. Oh, we might jump off at this one. That's all right. We'll swap over. Break that down to, am I telling my partner that I'm going to be home at 10 o'clock and I don't get home till 11 o'clock, and then they get annoyed, and then so the next time I have less time. So my thought there is be a little bit more upfront about the time that you're going to be away. Another good thing is, if you do go for a bike ride, try not to come home and be like absolutely dead on the couch. Fuel your ride so you can be engaged in your family, or if you've got a christening to go to or a birthday party to go to, that at least you're an active human at that, and not, Jesse's in the corner because he rode today and like no one wants to talk to him. And then the next weekend, you're far less likely to get out. So try and break down the reasons, and this very much plays out in our house. Like, what are the things that are causing you to skip these steps? No, actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's 1 kilometre from the freeway.
Oh, it's just over there. Yeah.
All right, quick, another one. For people who are looking to maximise fitness gains in an efficient way possible with no particular event to train for, are Zone 2 rides more than enough? Or does it really need to be some structured intervals? So you're looking to maximise fitness gains with no particular event to train for. I would say Zone 2 rides aren't that important. Like if you're not training for anything and you're just trying to maintain a decent level of fitness, just ride your bike 3 times a week and ride really hard. That's going to do a lot more for maintaining your fitness than we've raced along this. What
Not
race
this
started?
one, the next one.
Oh, is it the next one?
Yeah, these all look the same. King Valley and
Valley.
Sun Tour.
And Sun Tour, yeah.
Tour
I
came back
swear
this
we did. We came up this way and we went reverse. Yeah.
Remember back when we used to race bikes.
Yeah. Zone 2 rides, I wouldn't even, if I was just 6 months, ride 3 times a week to maintain it, I wouldn't even do a Zone 2 ride.
If you're just riding your bike for fun and you're enjoying it, you're not doing it you shouldn't even know what a Zone 2 ride is. Just go out and ride it and beat your mate up the next hill. Like, who cares? Like,
Yeah. Should I buy a skin suit? Nah, unless you're doing time trials, I wouldn't buy a skin suit. Are aero handlebars worth it? Yes.
Yep. Those.
If your position on the bike is set and you don't really play with it much, I'd go aero handlebars. Yes. I did a whole video on that.
Those FSA ones are so good. Like, they're so stiff.
They're very nice. All right, pause. Intermission.
You're driving after this. That's all right.
I'm left. All right, we're live again. Round 3. Moving on, getting through the question list.
If you are still here, you have a problem.
You have a problem.
Do something else with your life.
But we want to know, I want to know if anyone is still listening, because I'm not going to timestamp this. So if you're listening to me right now, you must have watched it.
You win something.
So if you're hearing this now, if you are hearing this message, leave a comment with the city or town you're from and your favourite chocolate bar. Leave that down in the comments so we can see how many people are getting through this far, and for everyone else that is reading the comments that hasn't gotten this far, they're going to be very confused. So moving on, next question. What is the best way for riders from non-European nations, how's the audio? Yeah, it's there. From non-European nations to train and reach the same levels that these European lads are at? Oh, it's actually a good question.
Oh, we're going to stay on the highway though, aren't we?
Yeah, stay on the highway.
That's a great question.
I understand Zwift Academy is bridging the gap to some extent, but are there any options / career pathways for the same? Big fan of the channel. Best wishes from India. Wow, shout out.
Peace.
Cool. It's a very good question. What is the best way to train and reach the same levels? I think you can train to reach the same levels as the guys in Europe. I don't think that's not an issue at all. Like we saw, Jay Vine did it. So training-wise, it's the same.
I mean, is your goal to become a professional in Europe? Is that really what you're asking between the lines here? Because if that is, then it's as Jesse said, the training is something that you can mimic, absolutely, but exposure to the level of racing that you need to get to that level is the biggest challenge you're going to find. We're really hopeful that the Asian tour is going to open up those opportunities again. I mean, it was really starting to become a genuine path for people to make their way to Europe, for sure. COVID has impacted that dramatically, and I think the Asian tour is going to be the last tour to really get back online. But once it does, and you're in that neck of the woods, that, I know there's UCI racing in Sri Lanka.
You may not, but you probably need to be on the team to get to that sort of stuff, that higher level. I have 8 the races in Asia. I mean, there's nothing you can really do to mimic it. Like if you're in Australia, if you're not in Europe, you can't really, and you don't have access to that sort of racing, you can't really mimic that. It's not possible. So you can go, and that's the thing about though is racing in Belgium or racing in the Netherlands, you can just go there and just enter the crits. That's the good thing about it. They're not UCI categorized races, so you could just, if you're really keen, and a lot of the guys do this from Australia, or even if they're not on a team or their team's not going there, they'll go over there and race over there and do it as an individual or with a couple of mates. I think that's the only way to mimic that European stuff. Are there any other options / career pathways for the same? I'd love to say there is, but it's
at the end of the day, it's still a really Eurocentric sport. I mean, if your goal is to become a world tour professional, you've basically got to be in Europe, unless you're on a Conti team trying to getting race starts at UCI racing.
Exactly.
It's kind of shit sport from that perspective. It really is.
And even then, the selection process is totally unclear and unfair. Like in rowing, at least, it's like you've just got benchmarks. Your 2K erg needs to be X. We then do seat racing, and then the fastest get picked. Whereas cycling, it's like...
Well, we were talking about this earlier. It's like even for some of the... Well, no, not some of... Basically, all the other teams in Australia, there's no online application process. It's just... How do you even apply to half these teams other than just random messages to DSs? And I know that's even the case, for guys at the top end, in the World Tour. It's it's not as if you can just send an online application into Jonathan Voiters or something. It's you've got to DM him on Instagram and see if he knows you, and it's all very convoluted. It's one of the things that we like to think we sort of change a bit, maybe.
Yeah. How much endurance training is too much? When your main goal is climbing, doing multiple passes, did you eddy come a loop with 3,000 meters? How much endurance training is too much? 4. I think we go with 4. 4. Depends how fit you are, depends on your experience, depends on what time of the year it is, it depends on what your goals are, depends on what training methodology you're using, it depends on your training intensity distribution, it depends on the terrain you've got where you live. Will Djokovic win the Australian Open?
Oh, great question. Great question. Will he be on the start list? For the first time in my life, I will be definitely cheering for Rafael Nadal. But do I want to see Djokovic get beaten in the final or in the first round? Probably the final.
Okay.
I don't like him, as you can probably tell.
I haven't followed tennis for years, so I don't even know who the hitters are. Best altitude training location in Australia. Is it really achievable / worthwhile to do an altitude camp in Australia, given the lack of mountain accommodation over 2,000 metres? Cheers. I don't know. Yeah, that is true. I mean, I think most of the research, if you're doing an altitude camp, you want to be sleeping above about 1,800 metres off the top of my head. And I don't know, that's quite rare in Australia. To have accommodation up there, up that high. I don't know, actually. No one really does altitude camps in Australia.
Well, they do.
Like where? Like what?
I thought Ben Dybel used to do them.
I mean, they do Jindabyne camps, but they're not sleeping at altitude.
Oh, okay.
Like, if you're in there, you'd have to have accommodation up at
you stay up at
Perisher or higher.
Perisher or Thredbo.
I mean, Thredbo's not altitude. Not high enough. I mean, do they stay? Maybe they did stay up at. I mean, if you stayed up at Perish, you'd be close, but it's still not that high. It's still only Perish is only like what, 1,200-1,300. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, what FTP testing protocol do you use to set up training zones? So yeah, your training zones are set up based on your FTP. Well, you know, whether you need to test your FTP depends. I usually just go for the 20-minute test for most riders if they need a test. Don't really rate the ramp test. Sometimes I do a 2x8 minute max efforts. For some people, if they don't have access to a good place to do a 20-minute test, that's probably my next favourite. I think though, with my experience, I say for most riders, if I'm looking at the training, I can estimate their FTP within 5 watts, plus or minus, which usually gets close enough if they don't really feel like testing. Chris, you ever do any? When's the last you do?
20 minutes.
Test? 20 minutes.
I'd 100% do it down at BV.
Yeah.
At Barangary. Yeah.
Yeah, Barangary. That's right. That was always the
best
go-to.
one.
Yeah. But you're probably the same as me, whereas you kind of get it. You kind of do your training sessions and do some races, and you kind of know, close enough where you're at. But to answer in short, I like the 20-minute test if I had to pick one. Is there anything specific to smooth out power delivery? Without power smoothing on the head unit, power is always wildly erratic, but is there much I can/should do to smooth it out? Currently set to 1 second logging. Cheers. So yeah, first thing, if you are using one instantaneous power on the head unit, it is, even if you're the most skilled rider riding on a flat road, it's still going to jump around. That's just how sensitive the measure is. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. That's not to say that you could improve at riding with a smoother power output. So if you wanted to improve that, what would you do? You would just need to practice it. Stare at the power.
Froom it, 100%.
And try and ride smoother.
It does work.
Yeah. You can, if you really want to improve it, be really anal with it. Yeah. And I'd probably say, I use 3 second, for my sort of instant power, I use 3 seconds smoothed anyway. And just stare at that for hours and just practice keeping it smooth. That's probably best, just practice it. I've got nothing else. You guys both talked about strength training. Have you ever tried extended MSP workouts on the gym? What do you think about it?
No, I'm tempted to though. Like I am tempted to do an actual proper, because we were talking about this earlier, like a proper block of strength training, because I've certainly found that doing my 1 or 2 sessions a week in the gym, I very quickly hit a plateau in terms of any strength improvement that I was making at the gym. After 2 months, I kind of hit this plateau, and that's sort of it. And I'm maintaining that, nothing more, nothing less. I would be really tempted to, and the reason I'm doing that is I don't want to like fully just park bike riding and go be a gym rat for 5 days a week for like 2 months. I just don't want to do that with my life. So that said, are there potentially some gains for me to make doing that long term? Probably. Certainly the older I get, I think there's probably more value in the concept of more gym time to try and keep some muscle mass. Definitely, it's probably less important for him.
Yeah, I stopped going to the gym because I didn't have the time. It was a waste of time. I just can't. I tried for a couple of weeks. I was like, this is just barely have enough time to get enough riding, the amount of riding I want to do in, let alone going to the gym. So have you ever tried extended MSP workouts? I think that is that must be some specific training term. So I can't answer that. I don't know what that is. MSP. No. But yeah, I don't know. I think you kind of do. You're just sort of once per week now anyway. So no, strength training, we're both kind of...
I'm really
At
happy
the
I'm doing it
moment,
again. I am, absolutely, but yeah.
It's not really... So once per week you're on. I'm on none. Should zone 2... Oh, more endurance. Should zone 2 work be structured the same for mountain bikers? Oh, okay, actually. Should zone 2 work be structured the same for mountain bikers that do races which typically have small punchy climbs? What are you doing what are you doing the zone 2 work for? When are you doing it? Yes. I mean, if you're a mountain biker doing small punchy climbs, that's similar to you're doing the zone 2, it's not all...
Why is everyone overthinking zone 2? Is this common? Like, do you see this a lot? Is this... Have we caused this problem by talking about it?
I don't know. I feel like I should just stop talking about it. Should zone 2 be structured? Yes. Yes. Zone 2 is to build your aerobic fitness. And that's the same whether you're a mountain biker doing short punchy climbs or a road rider. You still need that aerobic training stimulus. So yes, there's no reason why you would change it. You might just use it to varying amounts if you're going to do an hour mountain bike race or to do a Tour de France. Narrow bars 38, go or no?
Go, definitely, 100%. Try 36s.
Yeah, same. I'm with it. Go.
Yeah.
Go for it. Also, does tubeless provide better grip than
100%.
tubed tyres?
Yeah, because you can run lower tyre pressure. Like last week, I was riding down in the absolute worst weather conditions down in Brownberry on those. The roads are horrible now, horrible. And like I'm running 45 on my road bike, and it's grand. It's absolutely fine. Like that is stickier on the road. Full stop.
Yep. Less tire pressure is more grip. I don't think can't argue with that.
And I will say that, people when they start running tubeless, I think they sometimes forget that you got to drop your tire pressure. That's where the real gains tend to be made with your dropped tire pressure. If you blast a tubeless setup to 110 psi, you will know about it. It will not be comfortable.
Sorry, Instagram story. Hello.
Hour 3, ladies and gentlemen. Hour 3.
Yeah. All right. Sorry for that intermission. Bear with me. Next question. We're on the last. This is the top.
Woo-hoo.
We've answered everyone's question.
Can't say.
Okay. Latest one. Hi Jesse, my wife and I were following you and Chris. There's no way he's going to see this. Oh, maybe if he skips to the end of the video. Okay. Hi, my wife and I were following you and Chris in our white van for some time just north of Albury. Wow. Today. Yeah, this is the guy that sent me the photo of the team car.
No.
Yeah, and he left. Yeah. Hey, David.
Dave.
We were in a convoy of 5 vehicles. There were 3 four-wheel drive cars ahead of you, and then my van. Yeah, there was those 4-wheel drives that passed us.
Hopefully, is he the dude that I cut off?
I hope not. I held your wheel for a long time until I was dropped because a slow vehicle moved in front of me. I should have stayed closer to your wheel, but I'm not used to racing. We were averaging an impressive 110 watts. I love the colour scheme of the car. Oh, God, brilliant.
That's gold.
How good. Well done.
Hold the shoe, mate. Come on,
Hold
Dave.
the shoe.
Hold
sorry.
The shoe.
Hold the phone.
Oh.
I just refreshed.
Another one's come in.
2 minutes ago.
Live.
Latest comment, live action. Worst bike you've ever ridden? Oh. Worst bike you've ever ridden? Jeez.
My second road bike was a Le Monde. I think it was called a Le Monde E-Tap. E-Tap or... Yeah, I think it was. The third ride it was like, I bought it secondhand. It was about 48 sizes too big for me. And I crashed it the third time that I ever rode it. And that was the end of the Le Monde. And the Le Monde was quickly then named the Lemon. So yeah, 3 rides in, she was dead.
Gone. See, I'm gonna go in a similar vein because I haven't really ridden a bad bike, thankfully. But the Focus Azalco I had, great, like good riding bike, but you crashed, the frame was cracked.
Oh yeah.
Crash,
right.
frame was cracked.
Yeah.
So I have to probably give that the lowest ranking because yeah, those chain stays are just, the seat stays, they just cracked. So
Yeah.
that's really annoying. Whereas like the Devel and the Bianchi we were on, they could take a bit of a crash without necessarily snapping.
That first iteration of was it the XR3 disc
Oh,
that I
yeah.
had? That had like Shimano mechanical disc
Oh,
on it, and it was like
yeah.
9.5 kilos, and it was like being sold as like a premium level road bike, and you were
And it
just
came
like,
with really heavy wheels.
oh, the
on it.
wheels were like horrible.
Yeah.
Those Fulcrum like entry level ones. Yeah,
Yeah, that
wasn't great.
No, that wasn't great. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this live broadcast. Bit of a view here. Are we getting B-roll here? What
B-roll,
do we
look
get?
at that.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Oh, welcome. So thanks for watching, everyone. And yeah, I think we'll end it there. I'm going to be really annoyed if this ends up as like 2 hours and 59 minutes and I've cut it too early. But anyway, enough rambling. Catch you in the next one.